Hi everybody, Michael Anderson with eTail Solutions. Thanks for joining me today in what is part 5 of our series on distributed logistics for digital commerce. Now, if you have just joined us for the very first time, I do want to point out the fact that we're already a little ways into this. Everything we've studied up until now has to do with laying the foundation. Now, I'm excited because today we get to start digging into the ways that this is going to start making you money and opening up new opportunities for you to sell. So again, if this is the first video you're watching, I really encourage you to go back and take a look at some of these foundational concepts because we will be referring to them today. I think watching those previous videos will really help with the understanding. So let's dive in. The first thing that I want to come back to again is that digital commerce is really all about yield management as opposed to more traditional ways of looking at inventory, of really trying to understand forecasts and predict where you need to have inventory and so forth. Yield management is really all about maximizing the current opportunity. It's maximizing what you have, where you have it, in order to be able to drive sales. So when we look at dynamic inventory publishing, this is actually one of the biggest drivers for providing value. And it's one of the biggest areas that is going to be able to open up new opportunities and drive growth. And the reason for that is that dynamic inventory publishing really answers 3 questions. The first is, how can I prevent overselling across my many digital commerce channels? You're selling across marketplaces, your websites, maybe you're doing wholesale drop shipping. There's a lot going on there, and quite frankly, it can be very, very easy to oversell, and especially on the marketplaces, that can be catastrophic if that happens, because you can even lose your right to sell on those. The second question it can answer is, how can I leverage distributed logistics to increase sales via some of these guaranteed shipping programs, things like Amazon Prime, things like Walmart 2-Day, and eBay Guaranteed. The next thing and the third question here is, how can I leverage it to increase sales by merchandising more effectively? So let's dive into the first issue here of preventing overselling. So remember, we've talked about getting everything to the point where we've got a master SKU in the base unit of measure, and we've got our icons here representing our supply chain. Now let's imagine, just for simplicity's sake, that we had 100 units of inventory available at each of these different locations. That'll make the math kind of nice and easy. So when you look at that, that's 600 total units on hand. Now we can look at how we control what is being published to the sales channels in a couple of different ways. The first would be really what we look at as sort of inventory allocation, which is you can say, well, on an individual location basis, I want to put kind of a filter or a percentage. So if we were to say your DC, instead of publishing 100% of what we have there, we're going to publish only 90%, then that would be that we've got 90 units available from that location to consider. Now, when you're looking at distributed logistics, oftentimes you've got many different locations with inventory available, and so you may actually want to apply different percentages to those locations, especially when you get down into looking at inventory at retail locations, which can be very finicky and hard to keep up with just due to the momentum of people grabbing stuff off the shelves and checking out. Okay, so that's one aspect of this, and so when you aggregate all this together based on the example I've given here, instead of showing that you've got 600 units available, you're basically saying, no, I'm going to say that I've got 400 available. That's one way of doing this, and sometimes this can work in concert with the next component to this, which is really publishing allocation, and that is to say we've got all of our different sales channels out there, and the sales channels, we may not want to publish 100% to each and every sales channel. So for example, let's say on our website we do want to publish 100%, because if you oversell on your website, you can call the customer, you can make it right? You're not going to kick yourself off of your own website. Unfortunately, the major marketplaces, they will kick you off if you are overselling and you can't deliver what you said you can sell. And so oftentimes you may want to publish a little bit less inventory on the major marketplaces. So in this example, if we were going to publish 100% to the website, that actually is 400 units. Because remember, we've said we've got 400 total, right? I'm going to publish 100% of that out to my website, therefore I've got 400 units. Now, when you look at the rest of it, so 90% on several of these, that's 360 units. And then you've got international, of course. Let's say we publish 70%, so that's 280. Now you look at these totals and you say, well, Michael, that adds up to a lot. And you're absolutely right, it does. But keep in mind that when we talk about risk mitigation, this is not about we're publishing once and therefore we have to stick with that number all day long. When we get into talking about distributed order management, which is a big piece of this, we get into cycles and we start talking about the order cycles. And in reality, we don't have to worry about being over-published like this, because we have order cycles that are running anywhere from probably every 15 minutes, every 30 minutes, depending on your sales channel. And so the buffer that we have to build is for that 15 to 30 minutes or whatever your cycle ends up being in your scenario. We don't have to worry about just publishing this once and keeping up for the entire day. Okay, so again, we're looking at availability allocation or inventory allocation, as it were, from the source, the individual sources, and then publishing allocation as it relates to how we push that out to the channels. Okay, so that's one way to mitigate your risk. Now, the second component here that I wanted to talk about today is how do we leverage these guaranteed shipping programs? We've already talked about how substantial that can be. So in this example, let's take a look at having 3 locations, right? So we've got a location that's really going to cover the West Coast. We've got a location maybe that covers the Southeast, and then let's say we've got a location that covers the Northeast. So if we have inventory in these different locations, that actually means when we are publishing out to these different sales channels, they want to be able to know, based on a moment in time, where is inventory available for this exact SKU, and where can you get it, usually in 2 days or less is what most of those programs are looking like right now. So when you look at the different combinations, just having 3 inventory locations can mean 6 different possible combinations, right? So you've got shipping template A, which might be just your West Coast. You've got shipping template B, which is your Southeast. C is your Northeast. Then you've got the combinations of these. So now you've got shipping template D, which is West Coast and Southeast. E is going to be your Southeast and Northeast. And then you've got your West Coast and Northeast combination, right? So let's just say you have inventory on your West Coast, you've got 100 units, and on your Southeast, you've got 50 units, and your Northeast, you're out of stock, no inventory availability. Now, what would this look like when you're publishing? Well, it would be that you've got those 2 locations would map to shipping template D, therefore you're going to publish shipping template D. Now, the example I just ran through here is a good example of like how Amazon wants to see this, but Walmart looks at it slightly differently. eBay looks at it slightly differently in terms of how they require you to share that data with them, whether it's a template, whether it's literal zip codes, whether it's states, etc. The point is now you've normalized at that master SKU. You know where that inventory is because we talked about inventory visibility across your network. You can now publish this. So publishing is actually a major, major component of how you drive success, and these programs are definitely showing increases in conversions. So now we get into merchandising. And when we talk about merchandising, let's take a look at having a single master SKU, and I like to use the example of ping pong paddles. We've got a single SKU, and I'm selling across 4 different sales channels just to keep the example somewhat simple. Well, I could sell this SKU if I've got control of my own inventory as opposed to forward stocking it somewhere like FBA. I can sell an each. I could sell a 2-pack of these, and I could sell a 4-pack of these, right? So just 3 different combinations there against 4 different sales channels. That could be up to 12 listings just from one individual SKU. But if we get even just slightly creative and we build kits out of this, we could publish with ping pong balls, adding to each of these. You could have an each with ping pong balls, a 2-pack, and a 4-pack with ping pong balls. That gives you a total of 6 options times 4 channels. That gives you 24 listings, right? So merchandising, and this is one very, very simple example. Think about print on demand, and you've got 5,000 designs against maybe 100 different SKUs, and you run out of that blue medium sweater, and now all of a sudden you want to pull down 5,000 listings. When everything is tied to the individual master SKU and the base unit of measure, gives you a tremendous amount of power in terms of controlling those listings, preventing overselling, taking advantage of these awesome programs, these 2-day programs, and then merchandising in so many different ways, creating many, many more listings than you actually have individual SKUs. So that was a very quick run through. We had a lot to cover, but I hope you enjoyed this. Next week, we are going to be digging into dynamic pricing controls. So I look forward to talking to you then. Take care.